All right, well, I guess I'll lead us into this. This is kind of my episode, so welcome everyone to another episode of the Retic Lounge. This is 113, I believe. So a little different. We're getting away from the book club for a second to interview one of Lucas's mentors that he has over at the shop, over at Lab Exotics. Mentorship, especially when you're talking about working with big snakes or just big potentially dangerous animals, I think is a very important thing. I know without my hands-on experience, I probably wouldn't have gotten into this species. So a subject I'm really looking to dive into tonight. Before we get any further, I just want to thank our Patreon community. If you want to join the Best Retic Discord, make sure to follow that Patreon link down below. Like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube video. It helps us quite a bit. If you're listening in Google Play or Apple, make sure you give us a rating. That just helps us get discovered by new people. Lucas, anything else before we dive in?
No, I'm excited for this one. James, James started, I don't know, he'll tell you when he started. But since he started, he's also become like a good friend of mine. And so I'm interested to see what questions that you have for him and any for me. And, it's just a good talk. I've talked about this before, just kind of like in my profession outside of snakes and everything. I'm a teacher at heart. And obviously with retics, I'm still growing and learning. But it's nice to have someone responsible wanting to get hands-on with retics before they made the plunge. And James will share he's made the plunge and he loves working with these animals. So I'm excited to have him on.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a decent bit of insight for myself. Still running a pretty small operation over here, but if that ever changes, a couple little questions here and there that'll help me determine what to look for in a mentee. So
also ask him, I don't know if you have it on your list of questions, but I want to also hear his thoughts as we've jumped into other species and have gotten other animals.
Yes, we talked about your
it.
Morelia, Lucas.
No, not just that. I mean, we're way past Morelia now, but yeah, let's bring him on. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile Enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile Enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile Enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com.
All right. Welcome in, James.
What's up, guys?
What's up,
How you
dude?
doing?
Good.
James.
So I was going to say, like I was saying backstage, I was supposed to have met you a week or two ago, but just wasn't able to make it out to Dallas. So lucky we get to speak again, here tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say you forgot to clean poop in one of the cages. I'm joking.
Missed a spot.
Missed a spot. No, I'm joking. Jade, I'm glad we've talked about this episode for a while now. We were going to do it probably a month and a half ago, and I don't know what happened. But happy that we get to talk about this experience, right? So don't hold back.
Yeah.
I love constructive criticism.
Cool.
Yeah, drag him. So
He
James,
buys enough snakes.
That's true.
yeah, all you can really drag him on is the new stuff he hasn't told us about in the Patreon community.
Which by the
I know
way
about it,
is
though, so.
by the way, Nick Mutton reached out and wants some of my locality stuff, and so I'm completing some of my incomplete carpet pairs as well.
Let's go.
See,
Let's go.
that's the support I need.
Yeah. See, we're all about the varieties, the spice of life over here, man.
Right.
Hey,
Oh,
I'll
man.
get there maybe one day. Let me just get into tree monitors first. But
Right.
James, before I dive into like my main list of questions, I want you to just kind of give our audience a quick introduction of yourself. You're the early years of James all the way up to when reptiles became a part of your life, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name's James, and animals have been a part of my life since I was a little kid. The exotic reptiles are fairly new here, a few years new to me, but I've been around dogs, cats, grew up around like 4-H stuff and hoof stock animals and things like that. So I've always had a love for animals that runs real deep. But I recently in the last few years started getting into like the exotic animals, specifically the reptiles, right? And but I love it, man. I've fallen head over heels in love with them and got bit by the bug. And
Can I ask?
snakes.
Can I ask what that initial like spark of interest into the exotics were?
So, I wasn't afraid of snakes when I was younger, but like there's pictures of me holding snakes. Like there's a place called the Snake Farm not far from me in Lucas. I remember going there as a kid and just being enthralled. There's pictures of me and a kid holding a big old burn that they had. And even like in school seeing snakes and stuff. And I don't know, the interest just was never really there, I guess. And I wasn't afraid of them, but like somewhere along the way, as I got a little bit older, I don't know what happened, but I actually like kind of built up a little fear of snakes for some reason. And when that happened, like I kind of channeled my inner Joe Rogan. I was like, we're going to conquer this bitch. I was like, no, like, why are you afraid of that for some reason?
Your David Goggins inner voice was going. Is that?
Yeah. I was like, we're going to conquer this. I don't know where, like I was building up this little bit of fear from. And so that was what really sparked it. I was like, I'm going to get a snake. And I was like, that's how I'm going to get over it. I was like, I'm actually going to get one.
I think that's a great reason to do anything. Like,
yeah,
fear holds us back from so much that if you're able to just take that first step and, get yourself in front of it, you might find something you love. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. My next one that I want to conquer is skydiving. Terrified of it. Sounds
Hey,
horrific, but
I'll
I
go
want to.
with you.
Hey, I've been seeing stuff out in Utah on Instagram of the base jumping out there. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I think that'd be a
You can
great
do the
first step.
tandem base jumping down in Moab. I don't know. I don't know which I'd be more afraid of, to be honest with you,
The
James. Jumping
question
out of
is
a plane or
yes.
jumping off of a cliff.
The
Yeah,
question is yes.
yeah,
Like
All
there is
right.
no which one.
Well, Lucas,
yes.
you're more than free to join us. It's only a
Oh, I'm
5-hour
down.
drive from my Dakota.
I've been wanting to go skydiving for a while now. My brother went, had a blast. And I'm gonna be honest, if the parachute doesn't go, it doesn't go. Like if it doesn't go, it doesn't go. Like there's nothing I can do about it. But
I just watched this is totally off topic, but I just watched, well, I guess not totally, but I just watched a video of Steve-O. I guess for something he was trying to do, he had to get certified to solo skydive in 1 week, but he really only had 4 days of good weather. So I had to do 25 some odd jumps in those 4 days. After watching that, I'm not too nervous about jumping out of a plane.
right, exactly.
All right. Sign it up, boys. Let's go.
All right. Well, hey, next spring, I expect to see you out here.
Yeah.
I need to go to Utah anyways.
Yeah,
All
we'll go
right,
find some rattlesnakes and skydive.
Oh, well, especially if we go down south, we can find desert tortoises, we can find chuckwallas, any sort of really cool small crotalus species, like really fun stuff out here. But let's jump into what we came to talk about. Wow, what we came to talk about tonight. See, James,
first?
like
What
I don't know where I was going with that or what words I was going to use, but like I said, James, I stumble over my words almost every episode. So if anyone's going to fumble here tonight, but let's just jump into your mentorship with Lucas over there, how you guys met, all of that good stuff. First off, how did you come across Lucas, and how did you know about this opportunity?
Yeah, so when I started getting into the snakes and starting to go down that rabbit hole, I got a few ball pythons, a hognose, and some colubrids, and I was enjoying all of them thoroughly. But like I came across the larger stuff pretty quickly, and was very intrigued by the larger species, especially the retics, the way people talk about them. And that led me into like my retic research, stumbling across the podcast. And after being just a few episodes in, I'd heard mention Lucas that he was in San Antonio, I'm just like 15 minutes north of San Antonio. And so I was like, great, like there's somebody close by, but San Antonio is pretty big. So I was like, my luck, this dude's going to be like an hour away,
all the way west,
San Antonio. Right? Yeah. I was like, it's going to be ridiculous. And all I really wanted was, I just wanted to learn how to handle big snakes, because everyone talks about retics, their food response and things like that you hear about them online. And so I was like, I wanted to take the dive in, but like I heard enough that I was like, I really do think like going to learn from somebody to some degree would be helpful, because I was like, I'm crazy enough that I'll just go get it. Like I am that crazy, but I heard enough stuff that I was like, I should look into it. And so when I found out Lucas in San Antonio, I reached out on social media, told him what I wanted. I was like, I just want to learn how to handle big snakes. Like I want to get one. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Come on over. And so I think within like 2 weeks, our schedules lined up and I got to go over. And I mean, that was how I met Lucas, through Instagram, went over, and I just wanted to learn how to handle big snakes. And then it's turned into going over there a number of times a week and going to help out and work with all the animals and the different species and stuff. Like it's turned into way more than just learn how to handle big snakes, but it's been a lot of fun because it's been very organic the way it happened, There was never what it is today was never what it was supposed to be, I guess. Never what I reached out for.
Yeah, you weren't reaching out like, hey, can I come over there a few times a week and
Right.
work with your animals too? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now when you were coming across all of the bigger animals, do you remember who in retics kind of sparked your interest?
That's a good question. I don't know. Honestly, it would have probably had to have been Brian Barczyk or probably Snake Discovery, seeing them with all the bigger animals. If I had to guess, I couldn't pinpoint like a single video or like single person for sure. It just, going down that YouTube rabbit hole of the reptile world is insane. Y'all know how it is. And
well, I started with ball pythons, and my buddy who gave me them told me about Brian Barczyk, and started seeing Satan and all of his other berms and retics that he had over there. And then I think it was just one day he started like in his video talking about super dwarf retics, and I was like, wait, I might be able to own this species. So that's cool.
Right. Yeah. I remember
especially you getting into it later and coming across.
Right. And I mean, I even remember when I started looking into it, hearing about all the super dwarf stuff and everything like that. And I remember hearing they were small, and I was like, not interested. Like I fell in love with retics because they're such impressive animals when they get big like that. That's what I fell in love with, And now I
wish I could say the same.
I do love the super dwarf stuff now, but like when I was first researching, I was like, I didn't think about wanting a small snake. I wanted a large retic.
I'm curious, James, after even, having a couple wild caught Kalatoas in here and we had the Kayuati here and everything, like even some of the super dwarf localities, like, does that still fit the larger snake criteria? Or are you still like, are we talking about like Bellatrix, Soleil type of big?
No, I think Lily, for people that don't know, that's our wild caught female Kalatoa in the lab. Like, she's a large constrictor for sure. Like, she's got to be close to 10 foot. Like, she's not a tiny snake, but at the time, like, when I was looking into this stuff, like the largest snake I'd ever really worked with myself at home would have been like a little over 4 foot ball python,
Right.
Yeah.
But working with those animals, like that's still a large snake.
It's a large constrictor, even super.
I wouldn't go as far as say she's impressively large, but she's a large snake. Right.
To someone who's never been around snakes, they'll be like, holy shit, that's a huge snake. But yeah, no, I mean, and maybe I'll do it later, but even my 9 foot purple albino, who I've bred a couple times, she's maybe 15, 20 pounds. Like, yeah, not a huge snake, but big enough for me.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And I get this smaller stuff. Like I get why people want to have a more manageable animal. And I think it's better for the snakes to try to make them more manageable, honestly. It makes it where people can house them and take care of them better.
Hey, like I've always said,
it's just not what I got into.
Yeah, and I've always said it's a good intro for someone who may want a larger locale of retic to start off with. And hey, if it's someone that just wants something a little bit bigger than a boa or something outside the boa species, I think it works great. But James, what were your initial thoughts when you started working with the reticulated pythons, like beforehand, like before starting at lab, just based off all your research?
I thought that they were going to be like these just scary monsters, honestly. Like all the info out there, like I thought they were going to be scary monsters, but like that also intrigued me, where I was like, I want to know more. And
he's the guy that likes when the snakes lunge out of the enclosures, and he's like, man, that was awesome. And I'm like, you're nuts. Like,
yeah. When I got my first couple ball pythons, like my buddy was talking about, oh, I want a mainland retic one day. And, all I had heard from him about them was, the wild caught stories. So,
right. No, yeah, I've learned through my time of keeping so far, like I kind of need a little spice to it. I need a little bit of spice, and the retics fill that slot. Like I love it. Like anytime I open a cage and one of those snakes come flying forward, like I just like, dude, I thrive in that environment. I get all fired up. I'm like, all right, let's go, but it's fun.
Especially when you can manage it into like a handling session, like it's rewarding.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. Like when I mean, probably 2 months ago, me and Lucas were dealing with Bellatrix, the big Solaire girl that he has. opened the enclosure, and she came all the way out, wrapped up the snake. We got a 40-pound or 80-pound, 14-foot animal that comes flying out, takes the hook away from us. He's like, "Go get another hook," like, you know. And by the time she finally, I mean, she bit the hook probably 10 times, like trying, and then finally, like, you see that switch go where like she changes. She's like, "This isn't food," and that switch happens, you know. And I mean, we pick her up with our hands at that point, just put her in the tub. But like,
no, there was a lot more that happened before that. She got behind cages.
Yeah.
She was knocking shit over. She got under, dude. She destroyed a section of the garage, and then we finally were able to get her out and then put her back in. But yeah,
But once that switch happens, you know, it's so great to see the animal go from this she's up here running, right? Like just biting, wrapping, no thought, no sense about her. And then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, we're good."
Yeah.
It's fun to see that switch.
Yeah. That even shocked me.
So Lucas, this question was initially targeted for James, but I feel like it's better targeted for you now. We kind of already know how you and James met, but what led to you being confident enough to know he was ready for the role you wanted to put him in ultimately and helping you with the collection?
Yeah. So, you know, what's funny is that, you know, he came over his first time and Sean was there, right? Sean is my 16-year-old and
your 16-year-old going on 25-year-old, right?
The 6'1" friggin' big dude.
Yeah, I've had him.
so yeah, he, you know, he came over there and we were just kind of talking, and it was cool. Like the first handful of times, like James was over, Sean was in there cleaning, and Sean was kind of talking to him and telling him about like the snakes' behaviors. And so I got to kind of like just sit back and then just kind of like add some more information. But, you know, I think what I mean, James came over once, right? And I told him like, "Hey, you want to come over on Sundays, hang out, mess with the animals? We're going to be in here cleaning. Feel free to come over." Cause he had shown a really big interest, and James was, I remember talking a lot about wanting to like get some experience with these bigger constrictors. And he was just gun ho about it and was like, "Yeah, sure." So he came over on Sundays, and, you know, as someone who comes over, if they're going to come over like once a week on a Sunday and get that experience, like I let them know like, "Hey, like if you don't mind and you want to like, you know, start cleaning some cages, or, you know, we're going to be working in here and talking to you with the animals. You can hold them, you can," and James was just like, "Nah, man, I'll clean." And so, you know, we take an animal out, James holds it, James puts it in a tub, he just starts cleaning. And, I guess like I just, I paid attention to his level of detail. And he caught on real quick. He didn't have any fear, any anxiety. And at the end of the day, like when it comes to like what I am kind of just like for someone who I like, you know, ends up bringing on like James, it's number one, it's their willingness, right? Like,
well, hold up, because this is leading me perfectly into what I'm going to ask next. And obviously James isn't your first person that you've had working with the collection. What are you looking for? Like, what qualities are you looking for someone working with your animals? You obviously have to be picky. You're not just going to let anyone into lab and just take over. So what qualities, you know, outside of just working with the animals, were you looking for to trust that relationship?
Right. I think that's a good question, because the lab is in my house, right? I got a daughter, I got a wife.
Most of us, our collections are in our house. We're, you know, the dream is usually moving it to another facility. So
right, exactly. Yeah. You know, and having a daughter and a wife on top of that, it's like, you know, if it was just me, you know, I would just flaunt, you know, my 9mm on my side pocket out showing, just in case anyone wants to, right? But no, I mean, my wife and my daughter are there, and so
I've heard of people doing that. So
I'm sure
it's not uncommon.
I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, I even hate saying this, but just, you know, judgment of character, and just the way that someone, you know, speaks to you, and their willingness to kind of ask questions and learn. And, I think that if someone came in and just like was looking at things and didn't ask questions and then like left in like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, those are people that I probably wouldn't like invite back. But, James was very open about like his wanting to learn. And I don't know, I think that we just, we clicked. And, at once a week at that point, we started kind of developing a friendship, and then it turned into more. But I mean, it's one of those things where you just gotta have to, I guess, have a good judgment of character. And
we also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code reticlounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code reticlounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today. I feel like I do, but I'm very hesitant to let someone in. I think that's not just the snake collection. That's, me too. So it trends throughout my life. But yeah, that's something I definitely need to work on. I've let a few people in, and, there have been a handful of people that have reached out. But, there's still a couple I need to get back to and just, give the opportunity. So
right. It's just one of those. I mean, you gotta, I've had a number of people ask me, right? And that are around the area, and timing doesn't work out, and then
and I've heard of one circumstance where it didn't totally work out. We don't have to brush over that again, but yeah.
Man. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just after that first experience, I felt comfortable with just him being there, and I think I invited him back, and he stayed there for, I don't know, that first time you were there, James, probably a couple hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the duration of it, like I was blown away. It was the first time I'd ever been around a collection like that or anything. And Lucas has got an amazing collection of animals. It's grown since I started with species, but like, I mean, there's so many different localities and stuff. I mean, if you're interested in it, I mean, you can easily spend hours in there just asking questions and talking about a rack, like,
Right.
I mean, it's insane. No, the amount of growth I've seen in Lucas, because we started around the same time. He had I think 2 animals when I was starting my first breeding season. So it's weird because like the amount of experience that he's been able to pack into this, 5-year span maybe at this point is pretty remarkable. So it's cool to see, especially with as someone who doesn't really grow that fast. So let's see. Can you describe some of your early days working over at the lab, and what were some of like the big hurdles you had to overcome in getting confident with these animals?
I mean, honestly, just learning to read their food response, right? Like, I mean, there's plenty of animals in the lab that you just touch them with a hook like once, maybe twice, and they're chill as can be. But we've got a few wild caught animals. We've got quite a few F1 animals, right? Like they're not far removed, and so learning to really work with those animals and read those subtleties and learn their social cues and their body language. Like, I mean, it was definitely a bit of a learning curve. I would say that'd be like the biggest thing. And I mean, but like early days over there is just working on a rack. Like, so with smaller animals, learn that retics are like a pogo stick with teeth, man. When you open a tub, they just come flying right out of there. And
Yep.
I remember there was a few animals in that system. Like I think like the first day I went to actually work, which would have been like my second visit over there, and there was two animals in that rack, which was a male Halmahera, who's now in a different area, and a female 50% super dwarf granite back. And they were like, you can do all these, but you should like let one of us do those other two. They're a little wild, And I was like, all right, whatever. Cool.
The one time I visited the collection, Lucas told me about a couple of animals, but I had a couple hours, if that, there. So
and half the time we were moving stuff in.
And I was like,
yeah, we were moving
super sick.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. So I wasn't about to get in with the freaky animals quite yet.
What I will say is, I did the same thing with Sean, and then we did, Sean and I did the same thing with James. It's when someone comes over and they're like, yeah, I want to help out. Or when Sean said, I want to come over and help out. That it's the first day where they're introduced to the animals. They get to visually see what the food response looks like. I'm talking about tapping them, hooking them, grabbing them. James just second day was like, nah, I'm good. And so what ends up happening is, anybody who like is coming in and doesn't have experience, they work on the smaller animals in the racks, right? Like you're going to learn the retics behaviors with the babies. I think in probably, I don't know, maybe, by your fourth or fifth time there, it felt like every few times we progressed to, a larger animal and a larger animal, to the point where, if James and Sean are in the garage together and I'm not home yet or whatever, and they need to clean Bellatrix, the 14-foot Soleil, I'm like, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember some of those early days with even wow. Why am I spacing his name even though we've said it 100 times?
I just said it, Sean.
Sean, yeah. My bad. Even the early days with you and Sean, I remember there were a couple animals. So you're like, yeah, like I just don't want Sean dealing with them when I'm not there. And now
he's a minor too, so that adds a whole layer of like
that too. But I know you're very confident in his abilities.
And, he's incredible for his age, and I mean,
yeah. But it was cool to see, like, especially when James came aboard. I remember, I think it was our last Dallas before the one that you and James were just at, the NARBC. But you got a text or a video of them with one of those animals out in the backyard getting some exercise, getting some sun, and I was just like, that's a cool moment right there, from being away, like not totally like being able to give that control away to, hey, my employees, or my mentors, whatever you want to call them, are outside right now giving one of my difficult animals some enrichment. So
right, I mean, they took, and she's not difficult anymore, she used to be, but yeah, they had the wild Kalatoa, they had Lily outside, and who else did you guys take out that day? Do you remember?
I don't remember. It's probably, if I had to guess, I was probably playing with Karma, the Halmahera.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's been nice. I mean, just getting to watch like the growth and the confidence that happens. And, if James is alone or if Sean is alone, obviously there's probably 2-3 animals that are maybe off limits in regards to taking them out. But if both of them are together, they both have the ability and they both got each other's back. They work great together. I think there's really only, what would you say, 2 animals? Willow and Bellatrix?
Yeah, I would say Willow and Bellatrix are the only 2. Yeah, that by yourself, at least, better be on your toes.
And I mean, and again, it's not even that they're like mean animals or anything. They just have intense food responses, and they're long enough to the point where, like, it's exhausting to get them in a tub by yourself.
Yeah.
Like just like plain and simple. I don't like, I have to do it at times and I don't like it. It's just, you're playing this with a, one of them is probably 11, 12 feet and the other one's 14 feet with a rope that doesn't want to go into a holding tub. And it's, and again, if they go under an enclosure and wrap around that caster, you got a situation on your hand.
You're on their time at that point.
Exactly.
This is making me so thankful that my biggest girl is just a tad bit over 10 foot, because she can be fun to get in a tub, but it's not all that difficult. So another selling point for the Super Dwarfs, everyone. Let's see. So Lucas, how do you balance giving guidance while allowing James to do his own thing, develop his own style of keeping?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like developing his own style of keeping, I think that like what's important is I give, the way that I do things. And then I also, I think I speak well, and James can correct me if I'm wrong, about like many other methods, of like ways that they can do things. But, when we're in the garage and we're cleaning and we're doing those kind of things and we're talking about like providing guidance or anything, the things that I'll mention is just like, hey, the last time I took that animal out, food response was intense, right? Like I'm kind of just giving them some updates. Or, I mean, even in today's day and age, oftentimes they're texting me updates, right? Because sometimes, they're coming over on the days where I have my daughter or I get home from work later. And really, James and Sean are just kind of, running the garage on their own, and I'm in the garage on the days that they're not there.
Something I've been curious on that side of things, James. When it comes to those days, is there ever a time that you don't see Lucas at all?
No, not unless he's out of town.
Okay.
Yeah, not unless I'm out of town.
If he's out of town, but if we're there, he's coming by. It's just like I said, he's got daddy duties or whatever else is going on. But he always stops by if we're in there and at least comes and checks and sees how things are going.
Yeah, I pop in and out, and might grab a water or might put a snake back in, or if Aspen's there and she's not just like tugging on me all the time, I'll go in and I'll help out for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I go back inside, and I'm in and out if I'm home.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I've been curious on for a while, but, just never really cared to ask.
Yeah. But back to the question on how to keep and everything.
Yeah.
I think I give like a pretty broad idea of like how to keep these animals and allow them to, Sean has a retic, but it's in my garage, but it's his animal. So like with Sean, I'll let him know like, hey, you have some animals here. He just got a pair of bull snakes that are hanging out in my garage for a little bit. So I kind of just let him know like, hey, these are your animals. You're here, 2-3 times a week. Like make sure that when you are here that you're attending to your animal. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I think they learn just more how to do it on their own just by observing and getting the experience. So I really don't think I dictate too much on how they keep.
Sure. I mean, that's probably a good quality to have as someone teaching, at least in my experience. You got to let people do their own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So James, what's maybe the most important lesson you've learned in working with any of the species or just reptile keeping in general while you've been hanging out at Lab Exotics?
Probably patience. Working with we mentioned her name earlier, Willow. It's the only animal.
I have to agree, in all of my years of working with them on my own, my greatest lesson has been patience with these animals. But I want you to go on.
Me too, before he does, because this story is great. But patience is you learn patience even with choice space handling, right? Just opening up that cage and like, you have other snakes to keep, but you don't want to rush an animal out that you're really working, like Susie. She's our Sulawesi here. And she's an animal that we're really trying to dial in the choice space handling. We're also target feeding her because I don't want to end up with a 16, 17 foot, 180-pound animal that is constantly just, you open up the enclosure and it's food mode, right? And so
I have to ask, because you brought that up. Are you still doing that with the tiger? Because that's the little girl snake. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I will say there she sometimes gets a little like reserved to come out, but she'll poke her head up and she starts to come out and everything. And there are just times where, like, if she's not fully coming out to me, but like clearly food response is off, we'll pick her up, because Aspen now, every single time that we're over, she comes in the garage and she goes, "I want to hold Athena." And she just tugs at us and wants to hold her every single time that she's in there.
I love that. That makes me happier than maybe any other retic sale ever. Like, that a little kid gets to enjoy my animal. Man, that's killer.
He loves that snake.
It's dude, and I'll be inside like cleaning dishes and everything, and I'll go to look at the couch and I don't see her, but I see the garage door open, and then I can hear her, "James, I want to hold Athena." And I'm like, "Where are you going, girl? Get your..."
Okay, stop. You're making me baby hungry, and that's way too far ahead of where I am in life.
I got the second one coming. You want
it? I'm not prepared at all.
Oh,
James, anything you want to add on the patience thing and
the Willow story?
Yeah.
She's our Philippine, by the way, F1 female Philippine.
Oh, I know all about the Philippine energy.
Yeah. So we had taken her out. It was a little bit after she had laid her clutch. We were cleaning her enclosure. And Lucas was like, "Hey, I want to get like some pictures and a video of her." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so I opened up the tub and I'd used the hook and tapped her a few times and was like rubbing her body a little bit. And I was like, "All right." And so I went on and grabbed her, and he was like, "Oh," like Lucas was like audibly like, "Oh, you're going to hold her." And I was like, "Yeah, she's cool. Like, we're good." And
it was his first time taking her out of the tub. Right?
Yeah. I think it was maybe like second or third. I hadn't had a whole lot of interactions with her, but like the one or two that I had were fine. Like it was all good. And so I was like just feeding off that energy, and I was like, "We're good." And he had mentioned, he's like, "You're gonna hold her." I was like, "Yeah, we're good. We're good. Don't worry about it." And literally, like, I finished saying the word "good," and she just struck at the freezer that was holding the pigs and rabbits, is right by her enclosure, and just wrapped up my right arm from like my bicep down to my wrist, with only like 2 foot of her head hanging off, just full food mode, just rearing to go. And I was like, "Oh man," like I was like, "Dang, she got me." And she like turned around and looked at me. And luckily Lucas was there with the hook, so he got her attention back. And I was like, "Man, as long as we can keep this good, we're good." But she, sure enough, it was like five-ish minutes or whatever. And we got her off of my arm, back in the enclosure. No harm. Everything was all good. And after
no bite, no nothing.
Yeah, no bite, nothing. Just wrapped me up like to where I couldn't feel my fingers. But
heart rate rise, but beyond that,
heart rate's pumping. Had like a 12-foot animal just 3 feet from my face that was rearing to go. But so we had that experience. It was whatever, and I was like, all right. I learned my lesson with her. I was like, I've got to be way more cautious with her. But then I was just like overly abundantly cautious with her, And then I would just get impatient with her and try to rush things and things like that. And this happened probably, I don't remember when she laid. We paired her in November. Actually, my very first day at Lab Exotics was pairing the Philippines.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my very first day.
That was
watching the
second
arch
visit in, or just your first visit trying to get
experience? No, I believe it was my very first visit ever paired.
Yeah. I was like, you get to watch a pairing.
Crazy experience.
That was weird because, like, going into learning about all this stuff, I was like, it was weird because everyone's like, you don't cohab, no cohabit, nothing. And like my very first day over at Lucas S, we're putting 2 snakes together. I'm like, this is odd, But yeah, so then I was very cautious with her for a while. And after she had laid, and I'd be working with her, I would just get impatient and try to rush things. And I mean, I remember even asking Lucas, I was like, I need you to, like, she was at Dirty Enclosure one day, and I was just like, I need you to come do this. Like, I want to watch you do it. Like, show me how you do it. And because he just, and so that's probably the best lesson that I've been learning is just to be patient, because each, we have a wide variety of animals, and we have all kinds of different personalities in there. And so learning that they're not all the same, and you've got to work with them differently. And, and I like to try to get my hands on them too sometimes, like, and she's just not like that animal. She works better with the hook and just taking your time, and you'll have just as pleasant of experience with her by using the hook and taking your time.
She's the type of animal that, 2.5 months after she lays, food response can turn on any moment. And then she has 4 to 5 months of like being chill. And then the rest of the time, the rest of the 4.5 months in the year, she's gearing up to breed, and food response clicks on. So she's an animal where 3-4 months of the year, you're a lot safer with her. And so she's just one of those animals, like the time where he's like, hey, I just want to watch you. It was the most melodramatic, anticlimactic, like literally just like use the hook, mid-body,
basically crawled into the tub.
Yeah, guided her head into the enclosure, and she just went in on her own. And then, and that's when I was talking about. I was like, sometimes you just gotta like be patient, let them do their thing, and I mean, I think I'm the same way as James. I think I want to get my hands on every animal, but there's about a handful of animals that food response can happen. It's the freaking Maluku regions, right? And the Philippines, I think, also fall under that Maluku region. They're, if there was a subspecies of retics, I think the Philippines would be a subspecies, and then the Maluku region would be a subspecies of the Philippines. It's just those just they have that different, early on, right? Because we're talking about F1s. They just they have that ability to just you can take them out of the enclosure and they are sweet and fine, but when you put them back in the enclosure, sometimes they'll as they're going in the enclosure and you have your hand on them, they'll wrap you, and then try to come back at you thinking you're food. So yeah, there's just I think patience is a really good lesson for everyone to learn with retics.
No, it was an experience just like that got me sketched out about my anery, my second retic that I ever had. I'd had very brief experiences with working with full-grown super dwarf reticulated pythons from the same bloodline, but never like managing their care, like getting them out of the cage and managing food response, that kind of thing. So it shook me a little bit and made me more hesitant with this animal, until one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to open her enclosure. I'm just going to sit here instead of forcing myself on the situation. And, that's when I learned, oh my God, my patience can go a lot further than I thought it could.
Right.
So, James, is there any specific area of retic care that you feel like you've mastered while working over at Lab? I know it's only been 9 months, maybe a year, but
yeah, next month will be a year.
Okay.
I don't think I've mastered anything yet.
If you said that, I was gonna be like, dude, I haven't even gotten there.
I was gonna say, me and Lucas have been working with them the same time. Lucas obviously a lot more, but yeah, I don't feel like I've mastered one single. I learn every day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd say at least one time a week, something happens where I'm like, really? That's how we're going to do this? Like, I wasn't expecting that today, like.
At least you haven't been pissed or shit on yet. It's been a year and you haven't been,
No, that's not true. Not in your garage. Not in your garage hasn't happened, but literally, I'll just put this out for the world. On Saturday, my cousin came over to the house. And we were just hanging out. We were watching the new Twisters movie on Amazon, which is fantastic.
Really?
And I was like, oh, this is a great time to just pull out some snakes for a little while, let them like get some time to just move around. And I grabbed my Solaire that I got from Lucas. she's a sweetheart. And we're just sitting there watching the movie. And when I pulled her out, I kind of noticed she had a fat butt, but I was like, nah, it's not going to happen. Not today. We're watching the movie, and she's like moving around, and she comes slithering across my chest and just dumped all over my chest, bro.
Oh, that
Literally.
part of retic care I could have walked you through.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, of course, I had to like stop the movie, go take a shower, like go clean up. Yeah.
Yeah, retake piss does not smell good.
No.
Yeah, I've made the mistake a few times of going on a lunch break to clean the animals and then like going back to do hair. Like my hands are all up in you when I'm doing your hair, and there's been a couple times where I like forgot to put on gloves or whatever, just was rushing it, and like middle of the haircut, I'm smelling retic piss, and I'm like, ooh, I am so sorry, and I hope you come back.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, so I offer a different level of service, I guess you could say.
Can I ask you this question? You know, if you haven't mastered anything, can I flip the question and like, I guess what specific areas of reticulated python care or handling do you feel much more confident?
Yeah, what's the most confidence you have?
Or area growth, I guess.
Area growth I'll have to think on, but I mean, I do feel very confident about like their body language now. Like they will tell you what they're feeling if you'll listen, if you'll pay attention and watch
If
them.
you're
like,
patient.
If you're patient, right? Like I mean,
that's what I need in a snake, is something that's going to project everything that's going on. Otherwise, that's when I get in trouble.
Right. Yeah. No. I do feel very confident in just my ability to read them and understand them. I mean, I spend hours in there every week with them, and so like I spend a lot of time with them. Like so, and I feel like it would just be like ignorance to not understand it at this point. Going on a year working in there and with my own animals and even longer, like yeah, just paying attention, being patient. Like I do feel very confident in my ability to read them, and they'll tell you what they're feeling if you listen.
You know, I don't know why this brought up. You know, out of all the snakes in my garage, you know, the 14-foot Solayer lunging out, whatever. Him recording interactions with her. Even Willow, that gave him a little bit of a scared. James, I want to ask you because I want to know if you're on the right plane with me. But James, what's the number?
Before you ask this, James, you need to be ready with the camera for the Pataeus carinata. But you go ahead.
Oh, I will be, brother.
Damn.
I will be.
Well, what the listeners don't know, and Nathan and I, you should know this, but James is my he's my stunt man. Yeah. He's the one who you know, when there's nippy babies and everything, I'm like, hey, go go take care of the babies. But the question for you, James, is what's the number one retic in the garage that you're the most afraid of?
It's a Partho ternate that's like maybe 6 months old. She hates me, dude. She hates me. It's so ridiculous. Like Lucas can go get her out and she'll like act like an angel. It's like how kids act when their parents go out on a date. It's how they act with the babysitter. The babysitter tries to be like, look, the kids are acting up. And they're like, no, not my babies. That's that little Partho ternate. She does not like me. I open that enclosure. She grabs everything. Her hide, her water dish, get her on a hook. She just wraps it. Like I can see the scale spread from her wrapping it so tightly. And I'm like, please, I'm not trying to hurt you. Like, I just want to put you over here so I can clean your poop. Like, please. And she won't come off of the hook. I like touch her. She just grabs me. I'm like, oh, that snake just, she doesn't like me, and she does kind of scare me, if I'm being honest. I open that tub. It's like she knows it's me. She just comes flying for me. I touch her with the hook, and
it never happens to me. I take the whole tub out. I'll set it on top and everything. I use the hook, and I go from the bottom, and she just starts coming up my hand.
Well, I would rather take out Bellatrix. If he was like, we got to do Bellatrix in the Partho, I'll do Bellatrix. No problem. I'll take the 14-foot, 80-pounder. The little Partho ternate, she doesn't like me.
Well, and this makes me think, like, I know that king cobras have a their intelligence is so high that they can have a bit of facial recognition, or so has been said. I wonder if the same goes for retics. It wouldn't surprise me. Chickens are able to do it. If king cobras are able to do it, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like it does, because even with my own animals, like I spend all the time with them. I have my best friend's my roommate, and like sometimes he'll be around and he'll pop in. He'll be like, "What you doing?" I'll be like, "Cleaning cages, brother." And I'll be like, "You want to hold a snake while I clean it?" He's like, "Sure." And like you can always see, they're like more gravitated towards me if I'm around. They'll like kind of come towards me a little bit. Like I think they know. I do.
Yeah, it's really hard to say without anthropomorphizing, right? So
it is true. You're not wrong, but I'd like to think they love me more.
All right. So Lucas, how and when do you decide when to let James handle certain aspects of care, especially when it comes to breeding?
Speaking of breeding,
this goes for Sean too, obviously.
Yeah. So when it comes to like handling, right? I think it's more of a, again, when people are newer and they're coming in and everything, I'm in there a lot more, and I'm supervising, and there's a few of the larger animals. Phil, the male Philippine, Salazar, the male Solaire.
Phil is a sweetheart.
Yeah. Up until this breeding season, even Vision, the ternate, I mean, he went full psycho this year and last year. I mean, he's a 4 or 5 year old male, and he just this year decided to start acting up. But there's a few of the larger animal, and what I mean by larger is 8 feet plus, right? And that, like, I am very confident and comfortable with them. I'll just ask them, like, after they've observed me once or twice, like, hey, do you want to give it a shot? Like, and so, I talk them through it, and just say, hey, just tap them, and, hey, just wait until they're kind of moving in the opposite direction, pull them towards you, take them out. And there's never been a hiccup with Sean or James. And I think that's because both of them are really observant, and they're just really paying attention. And to be honest, I think anybody who's serious about like wanting to work with these animals, you don't have a choice. You're in a garage with large animals. You have to be observant. You can't be, you can't be walking around with your finger up your ass and then be like, hey, let me go grab that 14-foot snake. And then once they,
why? Because they might like the smell, or
right. It smells like, it smells like pig shit. So once they, they say yes. And so I walk them through it, and they have just both of them have impressed me. Really just, they impress me, just their ability to do that. And that's how the handling experience goes. And we just continue to work our way up, right, into the more difficult animals. And it always starts with observation. And when they're both there and I am doing it, I'm always like, especially when they're new, I'm talking and I'm letting them know, like, what am I observing? Hey, did you see how she twitched her head back? Or you see how she's bucking the hook? And so when it came to the
even to this day, I'll be in there doing something, and Lucas will be like, I don't know, that's how I do it. It might be fine, but he might be like, ain't how I do it. And I'm like, well, you're not doing it. So you do your snake, I'll do mine. How about that?
That's the right response, because we all learn from experience. So if you wouldn't do it way, and then you have to learn from, a little bit of repercussions, that's fine.
Right. And I think a big animal that I say that a lot about is Wanda. One of the F1 ternates. Yeah. And because I have had
Wanda's a sweetheart to me.
Right. And I mean, she's a sweetheart to me, but I've had multiple, like when I talk about like the whole wrap your hand and turn around and come at you, I think of Wanda immediately. She's the one who, like, for a whole year when she was like 3 to 4, that whole year was a sketchy year.
I feel like 3 to 4 for females, though, can just be a sketchy time.
Yeah, they're ramping up in size, they're kind of going through a growth spurt, all that stuff. And so there's times where he'll be getting Wanda out and I'll see a body reaction, or I'll see something, because I'm a little bit more hyper focused, because I had a whole year with her when James wasn't there. That was not fun.
It's trauma, James.
It is trauma. Dude, it's not. I mean, I mean, it is. I mean, James can relate with Willow. You know,
I can.
We call it the yips, right? So when you have a bad experience with a snake in the garage, and you can kind of sense that anxious energy when you go to open up the next time that enclosure. We call that the yips, right? And it takes a few experiences to be able to kind of snap out of that. But Wanda just kind of, you know, she's got me, you know, alert all the time now. And so when he's getting Wanda out, not a single bad interaction, he treats her just like any other retic. And so he'll tap her, and you know, I might see something, right, and be like, I don't know, I don't think I would do that. And then he just, you know, continues to pull her out, and she's fine, and it's great. But when it comes to breeding, I think the breeding part happens naturally, because now that they're both coming over more, they each had their own like first season of being able to like actually observe. And so again, I just talk as I'm doing it when they're there, what I'm looking for, the thickness, how often we're feeding, and kind of just like walking them through that entire process. And then, you know, and then after, I don't know. I mean, I just, every time that I do an introduction, I typically will do it just coincidentally on a day that they're there. And so they get to do that experience, right? So like we take the female out, we put the male in, we put the female back in after, and, you know, all of us have a hook in our hand, just watching, observing. I'm kind of talking through the process and, you know, looking at male's behavior, female's behavior. I believe this clutch incubating now that's doing about 3 weeks, James, you know, I had James do the whole introduction. I had him do the separation. James was there for, you know, pulling. It was maybe the second time of actually pulling a clutch with James, I believe. And so I was more talking out loud as I was doing it. And so he got to do the whole pairing process by himself and taking her out, taking the male out, and I just pulled the eggs, but then we got to split the eggs together. We weighed them together, and I want them to be as hands-on as possible with that.
Yeah, especially for the moments you're out of town and doing your own thing. But you mentioned, you know, hooks in hand. What kind of hooks were you using?
A Stony.
Damn right you were. All right. Gang, baby. So, James, I feel like we've hit this a handful of times tonight, but just for the people that don't have any experience with larger animals, what role do you feel like the hands-on experience has played in shaping your confidence in working and now owning larger animals?
I think everything, honestly. I think it had everything to do with it. Like, because I mean the information, especially with those podcasts that y'all putting out, it's so much better with the information. But like, I swear, like looking into retics and stuff, you just hear about food response, food aggression, and things like that, and tap training. But there's like hardly any info on that. You know, like you hear the word tap training, you're like, what is that? Like, and, you know, and when you see it in person, you realize it really is quite simple. It's just tapping the snake, you know, it's just touching them with a hook and letting them know that there's not food there, that this is me, you're coming out. It's not food. But I think just working with them in person and having a mentor like Lucas to walk me through those steps in person, like, yeah, I think it shaped every bit of confidence that I have with the animals, for sure.
Yeah, I think like if you have zero experience, for some reason you're not able to get the hands-on experience before jumping into a species like retics, or, you know, even some of the super dwarf localities, is, you know, it's important to start with a baby. But, you know, there's people that jump in all the time buying adults with no ounce of experience before it and really just get thrown to the fire. So I agree. I think experience beforehand and at least getting hands-on a couple times with these animals, especially as adults, is so important.
I think it's good to know what you're going to be getting into. I mean,
it stops that impulse buy that we preach so hard against. And, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the biggest snake Lucas has is I bought a baby from. Like, and I mean, she could get bigger than Bellatrix, and I wouldn't care though. Like she's such an amazing animal. Like, and
And she's still
And
not even
knowing what
that
I know that
big.
I'm do what?
And she's still considerably speaking what a reticulated python is, she's still
Right.
not even that big.
Right. She's not, but I mean, she is a large constrictor. Like, and
Oh, for sure.
and I think just learning about it and everything, I mean, it shaped enough of a influence on me that, I mean, I bought a baby that I'm expecting to be 14 foot and 80 pounds at 14 years old, and I'm completely okay with that. Like, she's a
Dude,
sweetheart. Like,
she's 14.
But
Yeah.
would you have bought an animal like that without maybe the experience of getting hands on first?
I mean, I'm a bad influence, and my answer is
Dude,
yes.
that's
fine. I want you
this-
to be honest.
yeah,
I don't need
yeah,
you to
yeah,
this guy's a morph market fiend. I get like 3
Oh.
freaking ads a day.
Okay.
He's part of the influence, but yeah,
Likes the window shop.
yeah, just as a
Oh,
reminder
yeah.
for listeners,
I've got some of Lucas to spend money with me,
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's nice because we can get a pair or something and not have to spend the full money on it. Like we
Exactly.
can split it.
Yeah.
But I will say, just as a reminder, if you guys haven't heard me say this before on the podcast, but don't keep retics for 1 year and then decide that you are going to get wild caught retics. Just don't do it. Steep learning curve. You get thrown to the fire real quick.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Luke,
think that definitely helped with shaping my confidence, I guess, is just that alone right there. Like, a lot of the collection that Lucas has is wild caught and F1 animals. Like, I think about it sometimes, like, what we deal with is not the absolute norm. Like, we're dealing with animals that are from the wild or just barely removed from the wild. I mean, the difference I have the ghost anthrax, the Solaire, and the Halmahera at my house, and just the difference between my Solaire and my Halmahera is undeniable. Like, that F1 animal compared to, 2 captive born bred animals, like, my Solaire is a sweetheart. She's an absolute sweetheart. But that Halmahera, like, he's got to bite the snake hook a few times. Like, you really got to, like, let him know what's going on. And that's not the total norm. Once you get into, like, some morph stuff or some captive, really a few generations removed from the wild, like, I mean, even my ghost anthrax, like, he's a really sweet snake. Like, it's so far removed, like,
slow moving, chill.
Yeah. The difference between the mainland and the dwarf stuff, like, I mean, it's, and the super dwarf stuff, it's way more slow moving, and he's just, with the morph too, like, it's so far removed from that part of the snake, like, an angel,
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't have any personal experience with anything that's, really fresh down the line as far as taking wild caught animals and breeding them into pet quality animals. But yeah, it's again a great way to be kind of thrown to the fire in terms of retic care. That's
right.
That's a great point to add.
It's like my number one regret, but also my number one, like, I mean, it taught me, I say this over and over, the first 6 months of keeping those wild caught animals taught me more than like the combined 5.5 other years.
I believe it.
Yeah, it taught me how to pucker my ass cheeks really well.
Well, Lucas, I kind of want to get into more just advice for other breeders, other people that their collection may have been growing to a point where they're looking at bringing, outside help in, or maybe they're getting inquiries for outside help and just want to, consider this as an option for other keepers and breeders to start mentoring others. Is there any advice on how to structure your mentorship?
In my opinion, I think it's best to structure a mentorship around people that you can be great friends with. Even Sean, who's 16 years old, right? I'm not going to go have a drink with him at the bar. But he is someone that I can talk to and converse with and have a good time with. I think what's really important is when you get hit up, right, about the opportunity, or like someone reaches out and says, "Hey, I'm nearby." Really pay attention to like the message that they're sending you and like their purpose for wanting to do it. The people that I typically don't really answer or are the people that kind of just are like, hey, saw you're in San Antonio, I want to look at the snakes, and that's it. I've gotten quite a few of those, and I get it, you want to look at snakes, but I James's message was
a paragraph.
yeah, I mean, he sent a good message, and like just really his purpose and reason why. Like it was his little it was his pitch sales to be like, hey, please, like I like this is something that I really want to do. And I got that right off the bat, right? But even if you're gonna put something out there, right, and you're looking for people to come in, I think it's important that these are people that you can trust and people that you can have a good time with, and it's not just like this working type of relationship. And the second thing is that I think is important is that a lot of people will volunteer, right? Their time and their energy. James volunteered, Sean volunteered. And after some time of them doing this consistently and really showing their value, I think it's important that even if you can't afford like a set hourly rate, is at least provide them a % commission off of sales. I think it's an incentivized way that lets them know that they're appreciated, lets them know that their work is valued. And although it's not a full-time job or even a pays like a part-time job, right? Because, at the end of the day, 6 to 8 hours a week is what they're typically spending there, right? And so if you like are saying like, well, I can't afford I can't afford to pay someone hourly, on the dot, right? Then go to commission of sales, right? Every sale that you make, you give them X amount of dollars, and that way that you are just I think it's a way to and there's even other opportunities, right? I might get tied up at home, right? And I'll ask James, and if James said no, then I would still make it happen. But if I got a lot going on and everything, I'll be like, hey, if it's a day that he's coming over or whatever, and be like, hey, I got to send out some animals. Like, do you, I'll pay him $50-$75 to go and just literally take the animal to FedEx. Right. And so those are things that like, are paying for a lot more than just the cost of gas. That's also just adding that value on top of just making sure that they're appreciated. I think when it comes to like how to structure mentoring is start with observation first and be responsible, especially if you're keeping larger constrictors. Be more cautious than not. Let them have the confidence to want to handle an animal. Ask them if they're comfortable doing it. If there's reservation, just, don't let them do it, and just say, hey, I'll do it, and just continue to watch. And it's the same thing that I say about like someone who's really scared of snakes. Like, don't put your snake in their hands if they're terrified. Like, slowly integrate that process into where they're confident in their ability to get an animal out. And then at the end of it all, it's I think that like if I didn't speak to the passion that I have for the animals, I probably would have lost James and Sean months and years ago. So I think if you're going to have people come over, you got to really love being in there. You got to love the animals, because people are going to you're going to rub off on them. Right. And if you're in there and only bitching and complaining about the animals and, the work and the community and different aspects of it, it's going to be a turnoff. So yeah, I guess that's all I had to say about that.
Okay. Well, before we get into some of my questions regarding, just identifying different locales, because that's still beyond me with only working with Kalatoa Jampea bloodlines here. I want to talk about your personal growth a little bit, James. How is your view of reticulated pythons changed since being able to work with a plethora of different localities, different sizes from babies to adults? And what are you finding most rewarding?
Yeah. I mean, working with all the different localities and stuff, like there's definitely some subtle differences here and there. Lucas talked about it a bunch, like with the Maluku region stuff, our Ternates and Halmaheras, and throw the Philippines in there. Like they definitely have a really heavy food response. Like you definitely got to be on your toes when you open up that enclosure. But most of them, like you still can have a very positive interaction with. You just have to be patient and learn to read their subtleties. And but I mean, just overall with the retics as well, like I mean, they're great animals. It's just I'm going to use that again, like just being patient with them and learning to read them. Like they're great animals. Like just learning about them online a little bit and hearing just little bits and information here and there. But when you really get to go work with them and you see that, like, we talk about how smart they are, but like we got plenty of retics that when you open their enclosure, they're just dumb for 5 seconds. You know, they got to test everything with their mouth. You know, you're like, how dumb are you? Like, you know, you're testing this hook with your mouth. We've done this 1,000 times. It's the second time this week, and yet you still got to grab the hook from me. You know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't make any sense. But once you can get that down and, you know, just deal with them for a few seconds and they'll figure it out. You can take them out and have a pleasant experience with them, hang out with them for 10, 15 minutes and no issues, you know? But
And that's including.
No, go ahead. I mean,
I was going to say that's including the Halmaheras, right? Like as far as handling experience goes, the Halmaheras are you wouldn't even, you know, compared to their reputation, you'd never guess it.
No, I mean, you know, Kratos is like a sweetheart. The male Halmahera, I mean, sweetheart. Like his temperament's amazing. Karma's super sweet too, but she definitely is one of those snakes. Like she's got to bite the hook. Like literally every time you go in there, she's gonna grab the snake hook. It's fine. She'll let go. Tap her a few more times, and fine. Pull her right to your hand and take her out. And when you put her back, just don't let her wrap around your hand. Like, just don't let her wrap around your hand because she's
one that does that.
Yeah, for sure. Once she recognizes that enclosure, she goes right back into food mode. And she's another one of those animals too. You walk past that enclosure, you're going to hear a pop.
Bam.
You get used to it. You just walk past, you hear. Boop, and you're like,
I don't. I still jump every damn time.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I think that kind of circles back to that whole patience answer from earlier. But
right,
once you do have that patience and can get past that point and learn how to have a working relationship with these animals, I think, yeah, that is probably the most rewarding thing with working with retics.
I got one question in regards to like your growth, right? And things that you've learned. And I'm curious because I was just feeding last night and we're going to feed a little bit more tomorrow at the end of cleaning. What have you learned in regards to feeding these animals? Because, you know, I think the first time that you go in and you're feeding some of the bigger animals, the smaller, like it could be a little bit, you know, of a shock, right? Because I was lucky. I got to raise an animal up for a year and everything. But then again, I got the wild caught animals and it was the first time I had larger animals just coming at it. And so when you guys started feeding and I kind of left you to your cuss with you know, doing the feeding when I wasn't there, I'm curious to hear about that perspective because feeding some larger animals like, you know, Bellatrix or Willow or, you know, I'm curious, like, I want to know just like what was it like at the beginning and like where it's at now? And like, is there anything that you've learned or tricks that you do in regards to like feeding safely?
Yeah. I mean, feed some of the larger animals, especially Bellatrix. I mean, it's intimidating even to this day. Like I'm comfortable with her, but like she's such a big animal and like such a powerful animal. Like, I mean, you make no mistake about it. You make a mistake, she'll let you know. And I mean, with Bellatrix for sure. I mean, I've learned you stand, you know, up against the enclosure where like she's going to have to come out and take a 90-degree turn, which isn't likely, you know. And you give them their food immediately. You know, a retic, once there's food in the room, you give them that food. You don't. It's not like a dog you're teasing with a treat. You give them that food. Right, like
what a great piece of advice. That's amazing. They see heat and they're going for the first thing that has a heat signature.
Dude, yeah, I mean, we got a video we posted on the page. I posted on the Patreon that James showed. He was feeding Wanda right above Bellatrix, but because there was food thawing, Bellatrix heard Wanda hit and slammed the rabbit, and you just see Bellatrix for 10 seconds, mouth open, gliding across the glass, trying to bite the glass, thinking that there's food being presented to her, and the doors are closed.
It sounds about right.
Right.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I mean, just she lost her mind for 10 seconds and just looked at me like, was that for me? Like, no, ma'am, it wasn't. No, ma'am.
You made a mistake, right? You opened the wrong enclosure.
Right.
Yeah.
She wished.
That's every retic when we're thawing out food. They're just up at the glass, just like, you got anything left?
My favorite's
something.
My favorite's the begging face when they just have their like neck and like the bottom of their face just like hugged up against the glass, like please.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean,
Nathan, you're muted.
All you see is their chin, is all I said.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nah, I would just say too, like, I mean, especially with like a larger animal, you know, I stand on the opposite side of them. So that way, like the glass is between me and them. And like I said, they'd have to take a very hard turn to get out to get me. And there's at least enough space that I have time to react. And I use the old tap on the glass trick to get them, look over here. It's the old magic trick, you know, look over here, but the prize is over here.
And you know, I want to speak to that. I do that, and I think I've even I think when I feed and everything, I've even talked about that out loud with James and Sean. I do that, even though I know a lot of retic people will open the side of the glass up that they are on. A lot of people do. Like, I see people making videos all the time that they're feeding, and I see them do that. And you know what? Like, you know, maybe it's because I'm a lot more cautious than some people, and some people have more confidence or they don't care to, you know, get bit or whatever the case may be. But I was feeding yesterday, and it was Wanda actually. And even with putting the snake, she was on the opposite side, and I try to, you know, and I'm opening up the other side. She completely missed. She lunged out and she just missed my shirt. And even if she got my shirt, she didn't bite me. She would have bit my shirt, wrapped, and I would have, you know, had a snake wrapped around me. So just for anyone listening, like, I do advise, like, try to feed on the opposite side that they're at. You're going to have more space between you and the animal. And, you know, you see awesome videos of Brian Barczyk and, you know, him throwing up the rabbits and like the snakes lunging out. And a lot of people have done that and everything. That's just not my style of feeding. I'd rather keep my nutsack safe.
Yeah. Agreed. I've had Bellatrix miss a pig or a rabbit. I don't remember what I was feeding, and she came out, and I mean, boy, I never puckered so hard in my life than having that 80-pound snake come flying out and miss her food, like full food mode, didn't get what she was looking for. And I mean, I was stumbling backwards. I finally got that thing in front of her, and I mean, she took it out of the enclosure. I was like, thank God. I had to pick that big girl up, put her back. I was like, dude, I mean, my heart was racing, man. Like,
and that's best case scenario.
I was gonna say, James, have you ever had an experience like that where you try to, the snake comes most of the way out of the enclosure because it missed the first time or whatever?
Yeah.
Have to put that animal back into the enclosure while it's wrapped, and then have it unwrap and then look at you.
Have you had that experience yet?
Go. No,
man,
that'll get your blood pumping and your butt puckering more than any experience you've ever had.
I told you about this. I told you about the story with Sean, right? He had that happen with the other large Solaire female that I sent back. You know, Sean was feeding it, missed. He then got it, and it knocked the bucket over. And then Sean finally put the food in front of it, and it bit and wrapped, but then let go immediately. And freaking Aspen was in the garage. Sean kind of froze, didn't know what to do. So I literally was like, pick up Aspen.
Double the liability.
I told him, I was like, Sean, I need you to just pick up Aspen, go inside the house with her real quick. And then I had to navigate and working with the snake, trying to find a way to get it back in wrapped, but not biting. And yeah, those are fun.
Attention off you and then back to food. Yeah, that's always a fun one to navigate.
Yeah, that's as soon as you see the head turn, you just grab and just toss. Like you're like, yeah, back in the cage.
Yeah.
Get your hands clean fast.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Man. Well, James, I kind of want to jump into these locale specific questions that I have. Colorblind, and like I said, only working with one set of mixed locales. How is working with, almost all of the localities that we have here in the US? How has it been working with all those different locales, and how does it change your understanding of working with retics? Like, are they all, can you put their behavior all in one box, I guess?
I mean, I think to some degree, yes, it's a retic, like I think just bottleneck it, yeah, it's a retic. But like there definitely some that just the Maluku region stuff, man, like that their food drive is insane. When they come out for food, once again, it ain't a dog. Like they're gonna take that thing, just give it to them. Don't play with that damn snake and its food. But I mean, I also think like that answer can change in the next number of years as like people like Lucas and other people who are working with these localities and they get farther removed from the wild. Like I think I'm sure it'll change to some degree. Like it's got to, I mean, looking at the mainland stuff and the morph stuff, how just removed it is from the wild and line breeding and stuff like that. Like I think that will change. But I mean, to answer your question, like the way it is right now, I mean, yeah, there definitely is a difference. And
so
once again, it's not the norm for most people.
The way it is, the way it is now, and what we're working with in terms of localities, can you describe a little bit of the difference in temperament between, a Kalatoa to a Phil?
Yeah, I'd be worried about a Philippine wrapping me up. I wouldn't be that worried about a Kalatoa wrapping me up, Kalatoa.
That's the best example I have, because I have very little locality experience, but whenever I go over to Phil Thompson's house, he has a Philippine male, and man,
that's a Halmahera.
Oh, that's a Halmahera, but still Maluku.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, that retic watches you and is expecting food like no other retic I've seen in
James
my
got
experience.
to experience that.
Yeah, I've got one sitting up there that he was watching me for like the last hour, and he just finally got off the glass about 15 minutes ago.
Okay. So Maluku region maybe a little bit more hyper in terms of their food response in terms of all the other localities.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead. I mean, I'm like a little lost on the words for it. I mean, they're just like they're so like. Go ahead. I don't know. I'm lost on it, but like that snake knows when I'm in the room. I don't know how else to say. Like he just knows.
Unless they're in a shed cycle, that's the only time I've seen one chilled out.
Right. Yeah. Like my little Homa, man, he's a little psycho. His name's Dexter for a reason, bro. He has a dark passenger going on in there, man. Like he just.
Oh, that Dexter. Okay.
That Dexter.
Yeah. That Dexter. He's got a dark passenger, and it seems like
we've been
lot
talking
of
about lab exotics all night, so I'm thinking like
Dexter's laboratory.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess I mean, and obviously I got a little bit more years under my belt when it comes to just the different localities. I would say that like a Kalatoa, they're just quicker to handle, right? They're moving a lot more. Yeah, they're faster. They move a lot more. You don't got, and you don't got to worry about the food response issue like mid handling, right? It's crazy. Like one of my easiest to handle larger retics is a wild caught female Kalatoa. She's as chill as can be now, and I mean that it wasn't always the case, but now she is. Yeah, I mean, there's the handling experience is different. You got to watch for the food response, and then and I know that we haven't produced too many. I don't think James was in the garage when the Coyotes or the Kalatoas, the pures, were born. But
I got to see some of the babies when I first started, but just a few of them.
Yeah, those babies.
I think as far as that wild caught Kalatoa goes, I mean, long-term captive does play a role into having a wild caught animal.
Yeah, but she was also a nightmare when I first got her.
Okay.
She's settled.
I'm gonna place blame somewhere else, but that's for a different day.
It definitely could have been me, right? And just me just naturally probably being a little bit more reserved. Oh well, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you, Lucas, for finally catching on.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, any of the Kayuwati, the Kalatoa babies, they come out and there's not a single biter. They don't bite. They run. We're talking about the Philippines and the ternate, Partho and everything. They're just they're geared up and ready to go.
Yeah.
They're ready to snap at you. They're a little bit more defensive, all that good stuff.
Okay. So just a couple more that I wanted to ask in terms of the localities. I feel like I had a pretty good grasp on, the Maluku region being a little bit more keyed in on their feeding response and not being able to turn that off. Are you getting an echo, Lucas?
No. My ear is getting stiff from these headphones.
Okay. I thought I heard a little bit of an echo, but anyways, the biggest thing I wanted to know, I'm colorblind. I have the locality super dwarf poster. I've seen some of these localities in person outside of the Kalatoa Jampea range, and there are some characteristics that are identifiable and different, but in terms of especially these super dwarf locales, what's been maybe some of the physical traits that you've found are key into identifying different locales?
Well, I mean, out of the locales that we have in the lab,
Think Kayuwati Kalatoa differences.
Yeah, mostly Kayuwati, Kalatoa. Oh, you don't have any Madu, do you?
Oh, I was going to
We have
say
an old
something that
school
would have pissed some
Superdorf.
people off, but yeah, we
Okay,
do.
sorry.
We have an old school Superdorf that that is definitely that's Madu type.
I see.
Yeah, and then definitely I'm not spending the money on a Karampa that's a Jampianus just like my Kalatoa. So
Yeah.
No. That's why I don't have Karampas. Yeah, I'm just waiting for more people to produce them and the price to drop.
Yeah. I mean, like Kalatoa and Kayuwati, like at least I mean, my sample size is going to be what Lucas has had in the lab, but like the Kalatoas that we have in the lab are like, they're bright, they're yellow, they're silver, very thin blacks. And I mean, they're pretty snakes. There's just not like the color spectrum isn't like super duper broad, but like they're pretty and they're bright. And like the Kayuwatis Lucas had are more of like a brown super dwarf, like they're just like
Neutral,
more brown. Do what?
Neutral. Yeah,
neutral,
that like
right?
just neutral.
Yeah, like earthy tones. Still thin blacks, not a whole lot, but like at least, I mean, that's the sample size that I go off of what we had in the lab. And I mean, that like, I think if you look at them and you tell somebody the difference, like they're gonna, I mean, you can look at those two snakes side by side. Maybe not if you're colorblind, but like I can look at those two snakes.
Well, maybe not in a picture. I think when it came to me seeing the Kayuwatis in person, that's when I was able to see more of the drab mist, and not so much of the silver bright color spectrum that you were referring to. So I do want to thank you, Lucas, because yeah, Kayuwati and Kalatoa are probably the two that are hardest for me to distinguish.
Yeah, and I remember when you came over and you saw the Kayuwati, I remember you made a statement. You weren't talking about like difficulty with telling them apart, but I remember you made a statement when you looked at Basil when she was on her shelf, and you said something along the lines of like, "Oh yeah, that's really different."
Yeah, it takes me seeing it in person. I feel like I don't know if it has to do with any of my color blindness. I'm red-green colorblind. But the pictures don't do it the level of justice it needs for me to be able to distinguish. It takes that in-person experience for me to be able to see the color difference.
Right.
Yeah. I think the
Okay, so
ternates and the halmas, those could be a little bit difficult if you haven't seen a whole
yeah,
bunch of them.
Really, really difficult for some of the, because, I mean, Wanda's a good example where she doesn't have the jagged, crazy ternate patterns, a little bit more
Right.
striped out. And,
mhm.
And she's
that's why,
dark.
that's why
She's
people
dark
ask me all the
ternate.
time, like, are you gonna, and she's real dark. People ask me all the time, hey, are you gonna take like your ternate to your halmahera? And I'm like, absolutely not, because that's gonna be the beginning of what the issue is with super dwarfs and not being able to determine what is what, right? I can make 50-50s and no, but the moment you give that to someone else, they can sell it as a pure ternate or a pure halmahera, and it would go for both.
Right.
We've talked about that just being an issue within the Malaya python genus. I mean,
Yep.
once you start taking sorry, not ternates, but any localif retic to a Timor,
Yep.
some of those snakes are gonna look way more retic like than they are gonna look like they have any Timor influence. So yeah, it's treading some dangerous waters for
And
sure.
that's why I've always said with those Timor retic crosses, like if you're going to go up in percentage on one or the other, like let's say you want to introduce retic morphs to Timors, you need to increase the percentage of Timor. Don't make 75% retics, 25% Timor with morphs, because now we're just
They'd be impossible to identify.
Yeah, now it's looking like a retic, right? And maybe a little funky, but like I think that people need to work the opposite direction. If you want to take a retic morph into a Timor, you got to get the percentage of Timor up and make a Timor phantom or
if we're talking about rarity of just the species in the hobby, I mean, yeah, let's produce some more Timor, right? Like
seriously, I'd say the vast majority, probably 90+% of Timors in the country are still wild caught.
Yeah, so I think if anyone's working with Timors, my advice to you is
Make Timors.
Make some more Timors. I would love to have something else that I can have confidence in being a full blown, relative in the Malayo python genus. So
yeah, Timors are up there for me too.
Yeah, I mean, how could they not be? I mean, we've dedicated
They're
2 years
awesome.
to a podcast and how many years to keeping and breeding. So how would you not want something in the same genus? But
Right.
Lucas, my last question is kind of geared towards you and is still on the same kind of subject, but how do you believe that the understanding of nuances between the different locales is important for different keepers at really any experience level? I think it's important for me 5, 6 years, 7 years in, wherever I'm at. And how are you emphasizing that when you're mentoring people with all the locales in your garage?
Yeah, so like I have some general blanket statements that I really like to make on certain localities, but understanding that it's important that each different animal within each locality is going to be different. Like for example, James has a 2024 F1 Halmahera, and that animal is nippy and is in panic mode and scared to death all the time. But there are siblings that people on our Patreon have that Chris Shar out on the Zoom just literally pulls them out and is just like, hey, look at my Halmahera, and James is over here like, screw you.
Chris has a little bit of that reptile whisperer in him, though.
He does. But I like to make some like general kind of, again, as I'm speaking out about the different animals we're pulling out. Hey, this is an F1 ternate. This is an F1 Halmahera. And I'm kind of talking to them about my experience with keeping the locality with the limited number of animals I have with each locality. So I do make some general statements, and I want to preface that because it's an anecdotal thing that I think applies in my garage. But when I think about like Salayers, right? I think about a high food response, heavier bodied, but not very long animal. When I talk about the Halmahera, the ternates in the Philippines, the main thing that I'm talking about is that wrap after you're handling them, just kind of out of nowhere. When I'm talking about the super dwarf localities, I'm like, be ready for a workout because it's going to move a bunch. It's not going to want to stay still. It's going to want to go up. And I know that there are people that are going to be listening that are like, hey, I have that locality and that's not my experience, and that's fine.
Well, and I was gonna say, even I was gonna wait a little bit, but I think even, animals that are more prone to some of these behaviors, you're gonna, if you own retics, you may see one of these behaviors just within your experience of keeping. Yeah, it may not be as frequent as some other localities, but
right.
you may run into it.
Right. And so, when I talk about the different localities and stuff, it's really about getting them, Sean and James, to understand some general characteristics, right? So, we know that the younger the Maluku area snakes are, the more defensive that they're going to be compared to a Superdorf locality. And really it's about me ranting and just talking about my nerd and love for the localities that I think is important ultimately when I'm talking about like differences, it really comes from a place of safety. It's about how we're going to handle the animal because of these characteristics that generally the locality exhibits. And I also, like, again, when it comes to the Maluku stuff, there's going to be people that have a difference, but I have my experiences and then I bounce them off of the breeder, Rodney, who's working with them, who has the most experience with them. And he's like, yeah, that's pretty generally typical. Like, that's what you're going to get. So it's not like I'm just like saying that, because I have 5 ternates in my garage that just because, my 5 animals are like that, I'm not saying that the entire ternate population is like that. I'm also taking it from someone who's worked with, at this point, probably over 60 of them. And so same thing with the Halmaheras and even with the Superdorfs, you hear a lot about like the flightiness and the runniness. And then, they do slow down and they get more confident as they get older, but it comes from a place of safety because at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest, this is probably something that I haven't considered. I have a good relationship with Sean's parents. I got a good relationship with James, but at the end of the day, I haven't had them sign any waivers. Right. So, they are in my house under lab exotics. And, to be honest, if they go to the hospital and they get bit and they get stitches, they can send me the bill. Right. So
absolutely they could.
So safety is the utmost importance. And that's why I talk a lot about the different characteristics of the locality, is because even if they never see it, at least it's in the back of their mind. And at least I've told them, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big factor of me bringing anyone, whether it be just a random friend or someone who reaches out on Instagram, when they're here with the animals, even though they may be working with my slowest moving, most chill animal, I always have that kind of in the back of my mind. So,
right.
And that's how I'm leading the experience, is just purely based off safety, even though the animal's probably going to be okay.
Right. And again, I characterize these locality differences in their behaviors as they are generalizations, just like you can make in the Morelia world. You can say that, Bredl's pythons are a lot more chill and easier going and easy to handle, whereas Darwin's pythons, Darwin's carpet pythons are known to be nippy and bite and a little bit more nervous, right? And so that's generally what people know in the carpet python community, and it's really no different in the retic world when it comes to just different localities.
Yeah. James, I've asked all my questions, but I just want to leave the floor open for the last little bit here. Is there anything you want to add into in terms of your mentorship, how it shaped, your confidence into keeping retics, any of that?
No, I just want to thank you guys for having me, and I mean, thank you to Lucas for taking me under his wing and for what it's become to. Like I said, I just wanted to learn how to handle big snakes. I just wanted to keep big snake, and now I'm getting to learn a whole different world that I didn't even know I wanted to learn about. In terms of the breeding and stuff like that. Like, that was never on my radar, and so I appreciate Lucas for bringing me into his world and stuff like that. And thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
of course. Lucas, go ahead.
I'm going to give you my sentimental, like when we end this, because what you have been able to provide me and the support and the help that you do and everything. It's amazing. But Nathan never got around to this. But I want to know, as we've brought in more species, what that's been like.
I was trying to keep it retic related. Come on, Lucas, give me some credit here.
But I want to hear his perspective, because we've gotten quite a few other species, and it's been very different. Species he hasn't worked with, species I haven't worked with, and I kind of just want to hear his perspective on what the experience has been like for you so far, bringing in other animals that move different than retics, that act different than retics, that got different food responses than retics. Like, I guess if you just, I'm going to leave the floor open and not ask a specific question, but just, I want you to speak to the diversity that we've done over the last year.
Yeah, no, I think it's been awesome. Like, I mean, I love the retics. I mean, I don't know that it's my absolute favorite species, but it's definitely like probably top 3, top 5. Like, I love the retics so much, but I mean, I think the variety is the spice of life, man. I love having the carpets, working with the chondros. You know, we've got the Sri Lankans, like we're getting Patais Coronado. Like I'm all about it. Like I love it. It keeps us on our toes. You know, it makes you think like, what am I opening right now? Is this a Sri Lankan? Is this a retic? You know, is this a
bull snake?
What? Yeah, is it a bull snake? Like you have no idea. Like, is this thing coming flying or not? You know.
We got some melanistic eastern hognoses on the way.
Yeah, the hognoses coming, the Brettles pythons. Like, I absolutely love the variety that we're getting into. I really do. Like, I think it's a lot of fun to get a sample of everything. It keeps it fun. It keeps it interesting. Keeps us on our toes. We're all, learning different nuances, different handling experiences. You know, it's nice to not only have to take out snakes that want to come after you. You know,
right? James got James,
and I think it's hitting me. I mean, it's definitely hitting me. Like everyone knows, and everyone who talks to me based off content that's put out on this podcast is like, when the hell are you getting your tree monitors? Yeah. So I think that hits everyone who focuses up on a species at some point in their keeping, right? And I think it is important to diversify your collection a little bit, just so you don't get too complacent in the way you're keeping.
Yeah, I forgot we got an Amazon tree boa too. That little thing's awesome.
It's adorable. Yep, Michael Myers.
Scott. Oh.
No, it's
a Halloween phase.
Halloween phase, so we named him Michael Myers.
Okay.
We don't even know if it's a boy or girl, but for now, his name is Michael Myers, and if it's a girl,
it can be Michelle Myers. It's fine.
We'll name it Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
But James did get bit by the chondro bug going over to Bill's. I think it's hard not to.
Speaking of James getting bit, there is one thing that I want to wrap up on, just because I think it's so fun. And only people who listen to the entire episode get to hear about it. But James, you had an experience with one of your young retics while on one of our Patreon Zoom meetings, where it bit you in the eyelid. I just want you to talk about that experience, and has that in any way turned you off into keeping reticulated pythons?
No, absolutely not. Like, I mean, no, I don't even know why. You know, she was in my face, so I don't even know why she decided to take a stab at me, but she sure did, just hanging out during the Zoom call, and got really intrigued about my face for some reason. And she took a good snap at my eye and had some pretty nasty bruises and color discoloration on my eye and at my eyebrow.
Like you got punched.
Yeah, I had a black eye essentially from a little 6-month-old snake. But
yeah, we were asking him how the other guy looked. So
yeah, good old red rum.
Red rum. Yeah, she's still a sweet snake. She that's the only time she's ever bit me. So it's not bad. But I mean, hey, a snake that you produced, Nathan, bit me over at Phil's house.
Oh, that is something I wanted to bring up as well. How do you like that Annery Golden Child I produced? It's
a beautiful snake, man. It's the first time I saw a golden child in person, and she's a beautiful
I am
snake.
so biased, but I think that's one of the best examples of golden child out there.
So what's funny is prior to us like going over to Phil's, we talk about the morphs. One thing that James didn't mention about being at the lab is he talks a lot about how being around so many localities has kind of like influenced his desire to like appreciate them. I don't know if I want to speak for him and say more than the morphs. But how that caveats into this is that he always just was like, I don't really like golden child. And I was like I'm not a morph guy, but like golden child is pretty damn gory. He's like, I don't know, it's just a dark looking snake. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, dude, we're gonna go to Phil's and you're gonna see this golden child, and I think your mind's gonna change. And he's like, no, yeah, golden child's really freaking nice.
My goal with this whole next pairing is to make a snake that looks like that again.
So you can hold it back.
It's a beautiful snake. I just like on a blanket statement, just seeing them online. I love like going to Lucas's house, like getting such a wide variety of the different localities and stuff and the wild types. It's hard to beat just a normal wild type retic, man. They're so gorgeous, and they're jagged patterns and everything. Like I love everything about that part of the snake. And so like just looking at a golden child online, to me, it takes everything away that's cool about a retic. But seeing it in person and the iridescence, man, absolutely. It's a kick-ass looking snake.
Yeah.
I always say that the reticulated python is the only python species in the world that never ever needed a morph. Just with like the massive.
I'm not complaining though.
Oh no, me either. But as far as like natural beauty goes and how diverse they are across hundreds of islands that have them, they're just naturally. It's hard to beat that like yellow-headed reticulated python that has the silver side flames and the beautiful freaking oranges, like a Sula or a Bali or even a Cambodian, right? They're really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's cool as a breeder myself and someone who's hesitant to just let anyone in. I think it's good for me to learn what Lucas looks for in terms of a mentee, and then in terms of the experience you've been able to, cultivate over there, and just the level of confidence you've been able to have to be able to, introduce these into your collection. That speaks volumes. And I think anyone who's aspiring to keep retics should follow your lead.
Yeah. I don't know if mentee is the way to say it, but it almost sounds like you're making fun of his, like, you're a mentee.
I was wondering what you were giggling at over there.
No, because it was a good message, but you said mentee, and I was like, anyways, mentored, mentee. But no, James, I just want to truly thank you just for coming in and fully embracing this and taking it on and being willing to come over and to help out and support. And I definitely think that my collection, I think that is at a place where I definitely I would be really busy all the time doing it by myself. I don't think I'm at the number that would make it way, way, way too overwhelming or anything, but you allow me to be able to really spend that time like with my daughter, or be able to like watch her. You and Sean provide such a valuable part of Lab Exotics, and getting the opportunity to allow you guys to do pairings and to do the breedings. And, I love teaching and you guys coming over, and, it's great to hear the updates that you guys give me in regards to how animals are behaving, letting me know that like, it's just cool to see, man, that you guys are like, hey, so-and-so is really ginger with the food response. Like she might be building, and it's really rewarding. And again, you provide me, you guys give me a lot to be able to be thankful for. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the friendship that's come along with it. Like it's the fact that you trusted me with your animals the way you do. Like it's been awesome, and "been's" the wrong word because it ain't gonna stop. You're not getting rid of me at this point, you know. So
that's a good thing to hear.
yeah.
All right, James, we're gonna kick you out to the back and finish up this episode. But again, thanks for coming on, dude. I'll see you tomorrow at 5.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening to my bullshit, boys.
Yep.
Any day.
Take it easy.
Yep.
Lucas, that was a fun one.
That was.
I want to use, like, this is probably something I was going to say in the backstage after we wrapped up, but I want to thank you for kind of putting the pressure on me tonight, having me kind of lead this through. I learned a lot, and it's stuff that I'm going to definitely take with me in terms of, you know, letting people into the collection. But yeah, just thanks for the trust on this one, Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those of you guys that are still listening, you know, we again just we Nathan and I have been playing kind of catch up for probably the last like 4 to 5 weeks in regards to like recording episodes, and so finding someone short notice to do an interview, and so we were just like, hey, let's have James on and everything, and literally like I gave Nathan less than like 24 hours. I was like, hey, are you down to do like an interview guide?
Realistically, I started working on this guide this morning, Lucas.
Exactly. And I was going to say, you killed it. The questions were amazing. It was a good episode. A lot of good information from James. And I appreciate you for asking me some questions to speak on the process. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was a lot I wanted to go over. There's, I'm sure, a bunch that I didn't even hit on, but you know, that's why we record this thing every week, is we can always add to it. So
right.
For all of you listening, I just want you to, you know, remember, like, comment, subscribe, do that whole thing. That really helps us just get our show out to new people that may not even have reptiles, let alone retics. If you're already into the reptile world and need a little bit more, our Patreon community is absolutely thriving. Our Discord is just a great bunch of people who are willing to help, whether you have retics or you have a jeweled lucerda. So
right.
yeah, so link below for all of that. Join us on the lounge, and we'll see you next week.
See you, everyone.